was, on behalf of, it's in Canada's interest in trying to stop this illegal and dangerous smuggling, to deal with those push factors. You know, if Tamils in general and poor people in particular felt that they could actually have a future, a decent plot of land with decent infrastructure and protection and so forth, and that they could stay, this would reduce the seductive appeal of the smuggling syndicates. And this is one of the reasons, this is really the nexus between the two issues of sort of human rights and smugglers.
Do you feel the pressure from the government to depopulate Tamils in a way that by applying pressure to leave?
I don't know. I never naturally, I always stay away from conspiracy theories, and there are some people obviously who think that's true, but on the other hand, the Sri Lankan government has, to its credit, welcomed back some of the Tamils coming from India. I gather they're doing a better job of that now, providing with houses. So I would not speculate that they're facilitating or encouraging this out-migration.
Minister, it's been now almost 65 years since independence. There were many pacts, negotiation, roundtables, conference, and many more initiatives. Nothing has happened, but now you're saying the Sri Lankan government is doing something. But Tamils were persecuted and culturally destroyed. And one of the world-famous Tamil library in 1981 was burned down, and now we have 300,000 people dead. Do you think Tamils in Sri Lanka can live with respect and dignity?
In too many cases, no, I don't think they can. And that is part of what I said to the government. This is what our Canada has said. This is what Prime Minister Harper said in Perth. So no, we think the government in Sri Lanka is falling far short of that mark. But you know, to be balanced, I was simply trying to acknowledge that they have done some things in the post-war period that deserve that are positive. Unfortunately, I think the negative things far overwhelm those. But I mean, in some cases, they have invested in new infrastructure in the Northeast. There has been resettlement back to original villages by some of the internally displaced persons. You know, there have been programs like this that I think, what I'm trying to say is that it's not all completely bad. I think there are some efforts that have been made, but on the whole, the sense I got was that the government is moving backward on the standard of reconciliation, accountability, and human rights.
One question. You touched upon the fact that there are progressive Sinhalese that want reconciliation, they want peace, and you mentioned that. So I just want to touch upon a point or an event that happened while you were there. That's the pretty much the removal of the Sinhalese Chief Justice, yes, from position by the Sri Lankan president. Given that's happening, how honest do you think he is about reconciliation, given that there's 3 years have passed?
I think the impeachment is a very bad sign.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the points that members of the non-governmental organizations and international groups made to me was that this is not, the problems, the political problems, the problems with respect to human rights are not limited to the Tamil community. That there's a growing number of Sinhalese Sri Lankans who are subject to a violation of their rights, and that really this is typified by the impeachment of the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court in a way that does not conform to international norms. So for us, that's a pretty clear benchmark on the way to the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting this November, that the government is not taking seriously the reasonable expectations of the international community that it respect the rule of law.
Mm-hmm. So do you think there's anything that we can ask beyond reconciliation, because they haven't been doing anything for the last 3 years?
Well,
and we look at Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, they're pretty much saying the same thing that you are. There's a massive concern. So what would be the next step beyond that pressure? Because they're simply not responding to diplomacy.
It's not just about reconciliation. The reconciliation really refers to what we hope would be good faith efforts to demonstrate to the Tamil community a response to the legitimate aspirations of the Tamil people, a respect for Article 13 of the Constitution with respect to devolution, elections in the Northeast province. These are some of the things we would expect to see if they were serious about reconciliation. But we're also talking about accountability. How many, what happened to the war dead? There's still, there's varying figures, but anywhere from, I think, at the low end 10 to the high end 200,000 missing persons. What happened to them? Many people I met with said the families simply want to know what happened to their loved ones, and some expression of regret, some perhaps very modest form of recompense or compensation, some serious effort to identify what happened to the missing people at the end of the war. That's what we mean by accountability. And then in terms of human rights, we're talking about the whole spectrum of issues, which is not just related to the Tamil community, but it's also related to issues like the impeachment of the Chief Judge.
Mr. Just to touch on Mr. Lee's question with the Chief Justice and even the further crackdown on the press in Colombo, where journalists have been killed and some of them have been missing, and some of them have left the country. Things haven't really improved. Now, the Prime Minister announced that he would not attend if things did improve. So since things haven't improved, will Canada formally push to have the conference move from Sri Lanka to Mauritius? Mauritius has expressed that they can...
My understanding is that John Baird put forward a motion to that effect at the last meeting of Commonwealth Foreign Ministers and couldn't get a second.
There wasn't anyone...
We put forward a motion to move the meeting, and we couldn't get another Commonwealth country to support it, not one. So this is an issue that we've raised with our friends in the Commonwealth. I raised it with the Indian Foreign Minister in Kochi just a day after I was in Colombo, and Minister Baird is working very hard with his counterparts. But so far, Canada is one of, I think, 56 countries in the Commonwealth, and ours is the only country to have taken that position. So we can't decide for the other 55.
Does that concern you? That
it does concern us. Well, it concerns us because we've always hoped and believed that the Commonwealth is a multilateral organization which, unlike others, actually has some normative values about democracy, human rights, and the rule of law. That it's not just a talking shop. And the high moment of the Commonwealth was when it ejected South Africa as a member by the way, that was an initiative of Prime Minister John Diefenbaker in the early 1960s, was to have South Africa removed.
So during near the end of the war in 2009, the government released figures saying there's only about 70,000 people in that area, and as we saw live coverages, we saw statements from the UN. Nearly by the end of 2009, the beginning of 2010, we saw about nearly 300,000 civilians living in those internment camps. And we also see that the government claimed, the Defense Secretary claimed that they did not shell any hospitals, but then there's UN evidence from satellites saying that the military did target the hospital and had a direct command from the government. So during the time that you were there, how honest do you think that the government and the government officials were with you in terms of communication? Or do you think that's something to think about?
Well, look, I think there was from the discussions I had, a complete failure to come to terms with the issues that you raised. The government seems to have a tendency to dismiss all reports of that nature as propaganda from the diaspora. And my point to them was, if you don't deal seriously with issues like this, you're going to see a revival of radicalization in the diaspora too, and this is not helpful for anyone. Please act in your own interests and address these issues forthrightly, and allow, they had their own internal, as you know, lessons learned report that's been shelved. No real consideration of the UN report on the post-war, on war crimes and post-war reconciliation. So, regrettably, they seem to be ignoring both domestic and international efforts, which I honestly think are trying to be constructive, honest, and helpful. Maybe one last question.
Any comments on BC Supreme Court's ruling on striking down?
Sure.
striking down?
Let me clarify one thing. The BC Supreme Court is actually a trial level court, it's not an appeals court. And that the ruling that they made, that the court made, was with respect to a provision of the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act, which was brought into effect